It's 10 o'clock at night. It's all pitch black outside with a big red sign. It says Kim Po. Welcome to Korea. And she goes through the customs. And Carla's refused to think about her passport saying tourist on it. She made her mind go blank. The passport agent looked at the passport, read her statements. "What are you doing in Korea?" he asked, smiling. "Tourist," she said. "See the country." He stamped the passport and handed it back. She only had $100. Particularly friendly smile, he said, "You can't work here, you know." No. I'm on vacation." The agent smiled hugely and wished her a pleasant time. Carla wondered if there was something vaguely sinister hidden in his words. Nah, she thought, and nervously tried to act natural. Waiting for the baggage, the other teacher on the flight said, "Did you see that?" "No, what?" "The other guy didn't get through. They asked to see his money. He only had $50 in cash. They're sending him back, but only as far as Hawaii." "Jesus, it's a good thing they didn't ask to see my money. I've got a one-way ticket and $100 in cash," she mumbled. "You're lucky," he said. "Yeah, I'm hurt, man. Oh, I didn't want to get sent back." Her luggage came through at last, and she made her way out to the receiving area. Among the throngs of Koreans, she picked out a dignified, gray-haired woman holding up a sign. The two made eye contact and wound their way toward each other through the nesting crowd. "Welcome to Korea." The older woman extended her hand. "I'm Rhea Benjamin. The teachers call me Mrs. B." Her handshake was firm, her voice solid and serious, her smile complimentary. "Carla Wintermute," said Carla. "Oh, Carla Wintermute," said Carla in a professional, enunciator's voice. "Glad to meet you. We have to wait here for Mr. Kim to park the bongo. Do you want to change some money before you leave the airport?" Mrs. B's flat tone seemed to suggest it would be a good idea. Oops. So Carla said, "Oh, yes. Where?" Mrs. B nodded the direction with her head. By the time Carla went in with a fistful of dollars and came out with a wad of won, or vice versa, Mr. Kim had shown up, and before she even caught up with him, he and Mrs. B had picked up her bags and headed for the exit. Carla had to trot to catch up. They all marched smartly across the parking lot in the cold night air. Mrs. B rattled off information. "Albert is the administrative director. If you have any problems with the apartment or your ball or your bills," see Albert. Albert, all right," said Carla, as if committing it to memory. She thought, "Albert? Who he?" But Mrs. B had moved on. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim had leaned around and smiled a large, toothy smile at Carla. She smiled back and uncertainly tried to follow Mrs. B's discourse. Something about Hajima and here's our bongo. The bongo was a car limo van affair. Mr. Kim and Mrs. B loaded Carla's suitcases in, and Mr. Kim got behind the wheel. Mrs. B directed Carla to the seat behind him and got in herself next to Carla. When they started off, Mrs. B started off. She handed Carla a Berlitz Korean phrase book, a map of Korea, a touristic guide, and then a pamphlet of teacher's duties, some material on this, a treatise on that, sheets of teaching tips, schedules, syllabi, guidelines, objectives, giving a briefing on the contents of each and every one. To all of which Carla nodded pensively, saying, I see, I see, at every available point. Although, of course, she didn't. How could she? It was midnight, and it was pitch black outside. They seemed to be in the middle of nowhere. Finally, Mrs. B had handed all of these documents, handed over all of her documents. For the first week, you'll see it on the schedule. You'll all have orientation. You're the first to arrive. We're expecting 2 more teachers tomorrow, and another one Monday night. Your roommates married quick. Carla chuckled indulgently, thinking of a possible appropriate response to what she'd heard. Mrs. B looked nonplussed for a brief second, then plunged on. She'll be leaving March when her contract's up. That is quick, said Carla. What's her name? Mary, said Mrs. B, almost registering surprise. How apt, said Carla, who did like a bad pun, but she quickly made a mental note to remind herself that Miss Humor was not one of Mrs. B's near emotions. There was a short silence. Mrs. B said, did the California office inform you of our tragedy? Yes. She attempted to match Mrs. B's somber tone. They said it was more or less cleared up. Well, they haven't caught up with the person yet, but I suppose it's just a matter of time. A personal matter, they said? That, no. Although the police would have liked it to have been. No, the most likely theory is that it was a robbery. The thief must not have known she was inside. Apparently, Korean thieves, if they're caught while they're red-handed, while they are in the act of robbing, are obliged to kill their victims. He apparently thought that there was nobody in the apartment and surprised Beverly. Her roommate had gone to the States earlier for vacation, so she hadn't been around. Well, at any rate, a cassette recorder that had been missing turned up in a pawn shop. It had been hocked by a middle-aged Korean man. But when it first happened, the police seemed determined to find the guilty party from among the staff. Jesus Christ. Somehow her royal staff apparently suggested scorn for the theories and practices of the Korean police. Just harassed the staff. Something terrible. Carla gave a sympathetic click. Rough on the staff, she suggested grimly. Yes, so much so that we lost 6 of them. One fellow had only been here for less than a week. Some of them, like Beverly's roommate, never came back from vacation. Another fellow had only been here a week. Well, I told you he left too, right? Okay. So it's one of the replacements was also sent back to Hawaii. So I heard. It must be hard getting people to come to Korea under normal circumstances. It gets bad press, I mean. Mrs. B let pass that invitation to applaud Carla's bravery. They were nearing the city. And this part isn't big. And the lights of the city, they begin to appear, and it's all very dark and cold, except for these lights that aren't really that bright anyway. And then she goes into